welcome to today's podcast. So today, I'm not sure if anyone is in here yet. I am going to change the time. I think I've said this before. I think just doing 11 a.m. is really random. Also, like everything's like crooked. But I think I'm going to do like after work hours. But I haven't figured out exactly what time. So if you guys, I know some people have emailed me and been like, or messaged me and said like, hey, I'm more available at this time, etc. So if you guys want to do that, I can, because I'm pretty open. I can move things around. So I can kind of do this at any time, especially now that Lana's not on here, because Lana is on the East Coast and she would need to pick up her daughter at a certain time. So we kind of picked this time for that reason, but just let me know. But today we are talking about logical fallacies. So there are so many logical fallacies, and I actually made a PowerPoint. Very not amazing PowerPoint, but okay, yeah. So we're going to talk about 10 common logical fallacies. So what are logical fallacies? So logical fallacies are basically an error or flaw in your reasoning. So it's you make a claim and then you use something to prove your claim, but there is an error in it. There's an error in reasoning that it doesn't follow. The conclusion doesn't follow from the premise because of your argument. But that does not mean that they are not effective. And there's literally hundreds of logical fallacies, and you have used them, I have used them, we have all used them. We've been probably convinced by them, especially if we have not been trained to be able to spot them and identify them, which is one of the reasons I am doing what I'm doing. This was actually a request from one person, and then a couple other people that I talked to that watch the podcast really like the idea. So I thought I would talk about them. So yeah, there are so many. There are literally a bunch of logical fallacies. I'm talking about 10 that are pretty common, but there are a lot more that are pretty common. And like I said, that does not mean that they are not convincing. A lot of our leaders in the world, political figures, they use these all the time. They're highly effective. President Trump particularly uses a lot of these, and his fan base or his followers really are convinced by them. But same with Biden, same with almost any politician. Today, so I was like, I'm going to use little clips from different things that I find, and I wanted to use one of Andrew Tate just because I know he's a contentious, controversial figure, and I was like, okay, it seems to get some of you guys engaged. But then I found one clip, and literally there was like 5 in that same clip. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna. So he's kind of gonna be the example for this whole presentation, but that doesn't mean that even his opponents in the same conversations are not using them as well, or that everything he's saying is wrong because it's a logical fallacy. That's another thing I want to say. It's actually called the fallacy because somebody's argument has a logical fallacy in it, therefore you think it is not true. That doesn't mean the argument isn't true. It just means that it has not been proven by their logic. It has a flaw in logic or an error in logic. Okay, so the first one we're going to look at is a very common one. If we could get the PowerPoint up. Perfect. Okay, so the first fallacy is called the anecdotal fallacy. And the anecdotal fallacy is when people use personal stories and experiences to make an argument instead of using compelling evidence. So we see this a lot. Like as an example, if 2 people are sick, or we see this all the time, somebody's sick and they start drinking something or taking something and their cold or whatever disappears in 4 days. They go around saying, well, I use this and therefore my cold was gone in 4 days. Therefore, this helps cure colds. Well, the problem is that somebody else who may have not used that had also had their cold go away in 4 days, because colds generally go away in a few days. And they're just not saying, okay, it's because of this. And therefore, the only way to actually prove that X product helps with colds is if by doing an actual study, right? A double-blind study with 2 groups. And that's how you would actually determine that. If you just use your anecdotal evidence, well, it works for me, or in my experience, X, that is a logical fallacy. So our boy Tate, this is a conversation he had with, I believe the guy's name is Hassan Piker. I don't know much about him, but he's trying to explain this to Tate, I think very calmly. And this video, I guess it's from a month ago. It has like over 1 million views. So some of you may have seen this. Again, I don't really engage in this online sphere. I didn't until I started doing this for my job. And a lot of you guys would ask me. Well, I mean, yeah, exactly. This is why anecdotal evidence can be so problematic. But here's a little example of Tate, of Hassan trying to explain this to Tate. Now, okay, so I just learned right before this that I can't play clips for a long period of time that are uninterrupted. So I planned on just playing the clip and then going through a couple of the logical fallacies in it. But now it's going to be a little bit more choppy. So bear with me. But if we can go ahead and play the first clip.
Sit here and say, oh, the internet said X. I'm sure the internet did. I'm talking about my personal experiences, and some people agree with me and some people do not. That is perfectly fine. Don't give a fuck if people agree with me or otherwise. People are listening to me and they're either agreeing with me or
but
not.
you're still wrong, and that's the problem.
I disagree with you.
Do you want to be right, or do you want to keep speaking into a hug box where people agree with you? And
Prove to me
then,
I'm
you know,
wrong.
well, if you just completely devalue
Okay, so
empirical evidence.
pause here. Okay, so if you actually go back to the PowerPoint, I was going to mention this later, but this is a perfect example. If you go to the next slide. So the first thing that he did is actually a different fallacy. It's called the appeal to common belief. I should have switched those maybe. But appeal to common belief is basically a logical fallacy that states that when the claim that other people, it's basically when the claim that other people accept a belief as true is presented as evidence for the claim. So we've all seen this. Well, you know, these people agree with me. Because people agree with me, therefore my claim must be true or it has merit. When in reality, it doesn't matter what people believe. I mean, at some point, everyone believed that, you know, the earth is, and I think Hassan definitely points to this later, but not in this context. But he says, like, there was a time people believed the earth was flat. There was a time people believed X. Just because other people believe something, or just because people believe something in general, does not make it true. Okay, so let's go back to the clip. Great.
Actuarial sciences, the entirety of the insurance industry that relies on making these sorts of calculations to ensure that these quotes are as profitable as possible, which ends up charging men higher rates than women, is a statistical likelihood that men are more dangerous drivers than women across the board and get into more car accidents across the board. If you're going to look at all of that and say it doesn't matter because that does not correspond to my own personal experiences, then you're silly.
Okay, I keep pausing it because I don't want to play it too long, but there we go. So he just explained. So he said, okay, Tate is saying Tate is making the claim women are worse drivers than men. Hassan is like, okay, well, where did you get that from? He says, my personal experience. So he's explaining to him, well, the problem with that is here is some evidence saying that that is not the case. And so if you're going to look at that and say that, oh, well, you know, I don't believe that evidence. I don't, because of my personal experience says this, whereas empirical data says this, that is where the fallacy arises. Okay, so we can keep playing.
Silly. You're being silly. You're being a silly person. If everyone thought like you did, right, we would have no scientific achievements on this planet. We would still be living inside of fucking caves. As much as I love Liver King personally, I don't think that that would be a good planet to live on. I'm pretty happy for, I don't know, all the medical achievements, all the scientific achievements that we have reached. And at the heart of all of that, all of those accomplishments lies an understanding of arriving at the truth through empirical evidence.
You done?
Okay, so pause. I'm kind of just pausing just to chop it up a little bit. But yeah, so I think he explains that really well. Our goal is to arrive at the truth. Our goal is to have a conclusion that is based in evidence. Using your own experiences as the sole basis of what you believe can be problematic for a variety of reasons, especially in this case when you're saying that you don't believe evidence because of your personal experiences, when your personal experiences is objectively a weaker weaker evidence, obviously, than actual evidence, that is a huge error. And I think Tate's argument is, well, we'll hear it. So we can go back and play it.
Cool. In my personal experiences, all of the car crashes I've been involved in, all the times my car was hit, and all the negative experience I've had on the road, women were at fault. That is, now you can sit here and say the insurance claims say that. I never said the insurance claims don't say that. I'm saying that I am not comfortable with women driving because of my personal experience. Those are my personal experiences. You can drag up all the empirical evidence in the world you want to try and drag up. Anyone with a brain knows how that aids the world agendas anyway. I don't want to go too political on a stream that's going to get taken down. So I'm not saying that I can't find a female race car driver. I'm not saying that.
That's not what I'm saying either. I'm not.
So he's also saying he's using this like, I'm not saying there are no good female drivers. I'm just saying that female drivers are worse than male drivers because of my personal experience. And I don't care what anybody else says. Again, not how reasonable, intelligent people argue any type of point. I could say in my experience, a bird one time, took my sandwich out of my hand. Therefore, all birds do that. Therefore, I hate birds. Therefore, birds are eaten. You see how this can really just be a very poor form of, I mean, I don't feel like I need to explain this anymore. I'm kind of just stopping it just because I have to. So let's keep going.
I'm not talking about like statistical anomalies. I'm straight up talking about the overwhelming amount of evidence that suggests that women are more careful drivers than men. Okay? And therefore better drivers than men. You keep resorting back to your personal anecdotes. So let me walk you through this, right?
Okay, let's pause.
Do you agree that human beings have bias?
So I don't know how much is more left of the clip, but yeah, he's gonna I think he's gonna go through and explain this one more time for Tate. So let's see if Tate understands it. I hate having to stop it, guys, but I feel like I have to. I don't know.
Do me a favor.
Okay. But hey, I respected your time. Do you want to answer my question?
Okay,
do you believe that human beings have biases?
Let's go to the next one, because yeah, I think I stopped it there because he just is going to go through the same thing, and Tate is just going to say over and over that it doesn't matter because of his personal experiences. So I'm going to skip a little bit because that's all that happens, and I didn't want to just waste our time with the same thing. And now we're going to see a couple more logical fallacies in the same conversation. So play.
With my personal experiences. That's fine. My point is, let me change it. Let's say that the empirical evidence says that a pit bull is more likely to bite you than a Dalmatian. But in your life experience, every time you went near a Dalmatian, it bit you and a pit bull never did. Are you going to go up to a Dalmatian still completely and go, oh, it's fine, completely unbiased because the empirical evidence says X when you're covered in scars? No, you're going to say Dalmatians bite me for some reason and I'm not comfortable around Dalmatians. That's called human nature. Okay. So I'm telling you my personal experiences, and I don't care. I understand your point. Empirical evidence says X. Women in this country can do X. I completely get that. For secondly, it's also
all right, let's go to the slides. So his Dalmatian example, next slide. So his Dalmatian example is an example not only of the anecdotal fallacy, but also the hasty generalization fallacy. Another very common fallacy. This is a fallacy that pertains to a lot of our prejudices against certain people or certain groups, and it's because of this logical fallacy. So a hasty generalization fallacy is drawing a conclusion by assigning the actions or traits of an individual or small group to the larger group, right? So it's too small of a sample size, and whether it's from your own personal experience, like it is in this case, which adds on that other fallacy, or it's just like, X whatever percentage of people or women, I know 5 women, and all 5 women that I know do X, therefore all women do X. Do we see that is obviously a logical fallacy, because that is not the conclusion that follows. If 5 people do X, that means 5 people do X. Now, what is the sample size? How many women are there in the world? Are you picking a sample size that is representative of that? Or are you just picking a small group and then saying that, okay, therefore I'm generalizing? So that's basically what hasty generalization fallacy is. It's generalizing, which we've all seen. Okay. Let's go back to the clip.
Country, because you're only talking about America because you're American and you don't see outside of the world. That's fine.
I'm Turkish, actually. I grew up in Turkey.
All right,
That's
let's
not the
actually
point.
pause.
That's not the point I'm making.
Let's go back to the PowerPoint. Let's go to the next slide. So that is an ad hominem fallacy. We've all heard this. Basically, ad hominem means against the man. So it's attacking your opponent instead of attacking his or her argument. So he goes, instead of saying, Hassan saying women are not worse drivers than men because of X, and Tate's going, well, you're from America. Doesn't have anything to do with the argument, doesn't have anything to do with anything. All it has to do with he's trying to attack him as a person instead of the argument. You could also say this is the genetic fallacy. The genetic fallacy is kind of similar in the sense that you're attacking the claim based on its origin instead of the actual claim. So that would be like if he said, well, you're from America, so people from America, you believe this because you're from America, or people in America believe X, therefore X is not true because people in America, because of the origin, because the people in America believe it. That is also a different kind of fallacy, but very similar. So it's not that personal experiences don't matter. It's just that it doesn't create logical, concrete evidence for defense. So personal experiences do not prove anything other than your own personal experience. That's the problem with personal experiences. Personal experiences are nothing more than personal experiences. You cannot use your personal experiences to come to a general conclusion. That is the issue. If you want to say, in my personal experience, I have seen that, subscribers on OnlyFans are ugly. That does not mean that people that subscribe to OnlyFans are ugly. It means that is all that's from my personal experience, what I have experienced. That does not lead to that conclusion. Now, a lot of times, if you don't have any other evidence and someone says, hey, what do you think of people that subscribe to OnlyFans? I would say I have no evidence about that other than my own personal experience. And here is what my personal experience has, been. That's really it, though. I can't go beyond that. All I can say is this is what I know from my experience, but that doesn't lead to a general conclusion because that is not enough evidence or good evidence for a general conclusion. It could be that people that subscribe to me may be a different demographic than people that subscribe to other women. Your personal experience is not good evidence, so you should not use it to make a general claim. Okay, let's go back to the clip. So yeah, that was an ad hominem attack. That is another type of logical fallacy because it has nothing to do with the argument. It has to do with the person making the argument.
The point I'm making is I'm uncomfortable with a woman driving. And if you actually ask most women, if it gets late at night or it starts getting dark or it starts raining heavily or the parking gets difficult, they usually ask the man to drive themselves. I know many women who do that. They're not offended by my assumption.
All right,
I know those women who go, oh, I don't want to park.
All right, you can just leave because I'm about to play. So there we go. Another, I know many women that do X, therefore most women do X. Does not make any fucking sense. Okay, play.
Park, you park it. Loads. There's not a bad thing about it. Who gives a shit, right? It's not even a big deal. You've come on here deciding you really want to stick up for the chicks and maybe, one of them will drive over to your house. It's cool. We've got better things to talk about.
Look, let's be real. I don't think I need
pause. Another ad hominem attack saying, oh, you're arguing this because of this, because you want this, because of this is who you are, because you want to get women. Again, not addressing his claim. In this case, I think it's because Tate knows he doesn't have any good basis for that. So let's continue.
I need to be a male feminist to be able to attract women. Okay. However, having said that, that was a funny implication. Having said that, you are failing to recognize what I am trying to say. I walked you through these steps slowly but surely. The thing is, the Dalmatian example that you gave is great because you are creating now a hypothetical scenario in which you want your opponent to concede. I can do the exact same thing and say, well, in my personal experience, Dalmatians never bite or pit bulls never bite, whichever one you thought was the more aggressive breed, right? In my personal experience.
Yeah, I'm pausing so that it's not too long. But yeah, there we go. I think he does a really great job of being like explaining why that is not a sound way to argue based on your personal experience. Well, in my experiences, Dalmatians don't bite. In your experiences, Dalmatians always bite. So I'm saying they never bite. You're saying they always bite. If we're just going on anecdotal evidence, then who's right? right? What we need is an actual empirical study. We need to look at a bigger sample size outside of our own personal experiences. Okay, continue.
What if in a million times that I have bred pit bulls or been around pit bulls, not a single one of them has ever been aggressive? We will never be able to arrive at a meaningful solution or a resolution to this conversation if we're both operating on personal anecdotes and hypotheticals. That is not how you can conduct an appropriate debate.
Good. So now you're saying the thing I just said. I have my own biases, my personal experiences, and I say them. Some people disagree and some people agree.
All right,
You now come along.
But you're still wrong, though, because I'm not.
Okay, so here we go. He did the appeal to common belief. Well, okay, I get it. I get what you're saying, but some people still agree with me. Therefore, obviously what I'm saying must have some merit because some people agree with it. That is not logical. That is a logical fallacy. It doesn't matter if I come up here and I say the sky is green and some people think the sky is green. That does not give me, that's not any evidence that the sky is more green because some people believe it and some people don't. So continue.
I'm not operating on biases when I talk about women driving. I'm talking about the empirical evidence. I might have personally thought women are worse at driving than men as well. But once you arrive at, once you look at the evidence and you realize that said evidence suggests something else, you're probably not going to continue believing the prior thing that you believed, right?
We went over the same point like 5 times, and I think we're just.
I know, but it's just weird because I can't I can't break through Andrew's.
All right, so I think basically, yeah. Andrew just, I get that he's having to explain things at like a very juvenile level for Andrew, but it's because Andrew clearly is either not understanding or he feels trapped in a corner and doesn't know how to get himself out of this, which if we continue, we see a little bit more of that. And we see some other fallacies that Andrew reverts to.
I understand your point. You're saying that even if I thought
we're losing the girl.
No, exactly. I want to talk to her. He's saying even if I thought women were worse drivers, I've seen empirical evidence, and I'm so smart that I ignore my own eyes and ears and believe what the internet tells me. That's what he's coming along.
That's not what I'm asking you to do, my friend.
I'm sure you're double vaccinated. It all makes sense to me now. You believe what you're told to believe. You don't believe your own eyes. You don't believe your own ears.
All right,
pause. Sit here and talk about empirical evidence.
So let's go to my slides. Let's go to the next one. This is my favorite, the straw man, misrepresenting your opponent's argument to make it easier to attack. I'm not going to lie, I've probably done this. A lot of us probably do this, right? So it is basically, oh, somebody says this, you kind of change things to make it seem worse than what they said or whatever, and then you attack that. So he goes, you're saying you don't believe your eyes. So Hassan's saying, no, I look at empirical evidence and I think that is better evidence than anecdotal evidence. He goes, so you're saying that you don't believe your eyes and ears, you just believe Google and you do as you're told. That's not what he said, but now it's easier for Tate to be like, well, that's stupid, right? But that's not accurate. So a really good tip, guys, for actual debate is you should be able to frame the other person's argument in a way that they actually agree with. So a good way to do that is if you're arguing with someone, be like, okay, let me try to frame your argument. Is this what you're saying? You are saying X, and say it in a way that the other person goes, yes, that is what I'm saying. That is a great way to actually be able to debate because you are not using the straw man fallacy and you are explaining somebody else's position in a way that they agree with. That is what they're saying. So just a tip. Clearly Tate is not doing that here. Okay. And actually go to the next slide. This is kind of a fallacy that is often used by anti-vaxxers. And I saw it here and I thought it would be a good place to put it in. One, he's talking, you could also say that what he did is a red herring fallacy. That's a different fallacy, which is pointing to something that is not relevant to what's being argued, but looks relevant. So like he's making the claim that, okay, women are not worse drivers than men because of this evidence. And he goes, well, you're probably vaccinated. And the implication is, well, vaccines, I don't think they have good evidence. And that's still what the evidence says that they're useful. And so he's trying, that could be used as that argument. But the perfectionist fallacy is often used by anti-vaxxers. And if we could go back to the slide so I could read it. Wait, so are you saying women are better drivers? So the person that said that, you are using what I don't know if you were here in the beginning. I am not making any kind of judgment as to whether this claim is true or false. I am just pointing out logical fallacy. So just because an argument has a logical fallacy in it does not make it false. So it could still be the case. I didn't look through all the evidence. I think the evidence that Hassan presented is good data. It's far better data than Andrew Tate's personal experiences. So if I had nothing else to go on, I'd be more inclined to think that Hassan presented better evidence. But that doesn't mean that the claim that Andrew's saying is false just because what I am saying is he's not arguing for it and he hasn't proven it in any efficient way. But if we can go back to women are safer but not better drivers, the best drivers in the world, such as, okay, so that is a different type of argument. I'm not focusing on the validity of what they're saying. I'm focusing on, I want to teach you guys how to point out logical fallacies so you know when an argument is sound and when an argument isn't sound. So it depends in this situation. It depends on what you mean by better drivers. Are better drivers people that can do like crazy, if Tate was like, well, this is how I'm using the word better. And when I say better, I mean somebody that's able to drive faster, then that evidence about safer driving is irrelevant. If some people consider what constitutes a better driver, somebody who gets in less accidents and is able to more effectively be on the road, then you would probably say, okay, in that case, maybe women are better drivers. So, but anyways, the perfectionist argument is if some solution to a problem is not perfect, then that solution must be rejected and is on equal footing with all other solutions. So we see this with science. Well, science has been wrong. Science has changed. Science is not 100% accurate. Therefore, let's get rid of science. And therefore, something else, some claim that is based on no evidence is now just as valid as something that is based in evidence that is just not perfect. That is the perfectionist fallacy, which we see all the time with vaccines in particular, but we see this with other stuff too. Oh, well, this is only this percent effective, or people are still getting COVID on the vaccine, therefore the vaccine must not work, therefore not vaccinating, which is based on nothing, versus vaccinating, which is based on evidence that is not perfect, is equal now. So next, or go back to the clip.
Evidence that you found on Google. Cool. If you believe everything that's on Google, that is your prerogative, my friend. And if you think that makes you sound smart in the modern world after the 3 years we've just been through, to say that I read a piece of paper that tells me to believe X, so I believe X, and I ignore my own personal experiences. And you think
I'm
that
not
makes you
asking you to ignore your own personal experiences. I'm simply asking you to look at the data.
So let's change the subject because you've just proven your point.
Okay, Andrew, do you believe? Well, you didn't really prove anything, but it's cool. Do you believe the Earth is flat? Or do you believe the Earth is spherical, round?
Aldi has his headphones on.
Yeah, oh, he took his headphones off?
He gets very stressed sometimes, and
Yeah, it's.
So yeah, that is that clip. Let us. Somebody said my mom is the best driver in the world, so that is false. Well, you would have to prove your claim. My mom is the best driver in the world because X. So if you say because in my experience she's the best driver I've ever had, that is faulty. Okay, let's go to the next clip. Here we go.
Things and men do certain. We live in a world now where the whole idea of the roles has been conflated to the fact where if I come along and say women are better with children and men are better at fighting, I'm somehow fucking sexist when it's clearly true. There's nothing wrong with stating the facts. It's the truth.
Okay, let's pause.
Because I agree.
Let's go to my next slide. Circular reasoning fallacy. This is a common one when an argument starts with an individual, with what an individual is trying to prove without actually proving it. So we see this a lot in religion. The Bible is true because it says it's true. It is true that women are worse drivers than men. That's not even what he's saying here, but let's say it is true that women are X because that's a fact. Pretty self-explanatory. Let's go back to the clip. and Andrew is very, very, he uses this all the time. It's just true. It's just common sense. That's called the common sense fallacy. It's not actually common sense. You're just saying it's common sense, and now it's supposed to make it true. It's a fact because it's a fact. This is a true statement because it's a true statement. Circular reasoning. Okay, play.
I agree with some of what you're saying. Like,
yeah,
again,
but then you throw in the OnlyFans, you need 100%
correct
thing. Like that's
I don't think
really
anybody
sexist.
here is arguing that, like, in a fist fight, a man's going to win.
Okay.
99%.
Yeah.
What about intelligence? Do you think women are as smart as men?
Well, it's been proven that the smartest people in the world are men.
See, that's
But-
I think where
That's been
we're running
proven.
into some issues.
That's
Proven how?
been
By
proven.
By
That's
who?
been proven.
How? What? Where?
So there's the bell curve, right? So men are more likely to be on the extremes. So the most stupid people on the planet
All
are
right,
men,
let's
and
pause.
the most intelligent people on the planet are.
So this is the non sequitur fallacy, but let's keep playing it because I want to play more of it and then be able to explain it. I'm just trying to cut the video. Okay.
Men. Women are more likely inside of the middle of the deviation. So this has all been proven, right? Men are more
By
likely.
who?
Read the study. It's more likely men
What
are on the
study,
extreme.
bro?
Study.
Google it.
What
You're
are you
professional.
yelling?
All right, let's pause.
I'm gonna Google it.
So it's one thing. I guess Andrew likes Google now. Google is not on some world agenda now in this situation, although last time Google is not. But let's go to our PowerPoint. Also, if you Google that's not what. So I know what study he's referring to, and he's right in that sense. But the actual, we'll go to the non-secular, the next slide, the non-sequitur fallacy, and then we'll actually talk about the facts on this. So when the conclusion does not follow from the Google it. I thought you didn't like Google. You believe what's on Google. You're a fucking idiot. Well, fucking Google it. It's a study. I don't know. It's a fact. Okay. When the conclusion does not follow from the premise. So let's say his study is accurate, and I know what study he's referring to, and it is a legitimate study, but let's just say that for sure it's a legitimate study. So if men are more likely to be on the outskirts, that does not prove that men are smarter than women. Do we see how that conclusion does not follow because the extremes are men? That does not mean that because the smartest people in the world, the smartest 3 people in the world are men, that does not mean that men are smarter than women in general. Does everybody see that? So it's like saying, okay, well, the best scientist in the world is a woman, therefore women are better at science than men. That does not follow. And actually that, if you look it up, that is not true, that men are on average smarter than women. It's actually fairly equal, and depending on in different areas, there are different things. But even if it's true that the dumbest people are men and the smartest people are men, they are more of men on the outskirts than in the middle. That does not prove the claim that men are smarter than women, because the top 5 smartest people, let's say in the world, which this is not true, or could be not true, I'm just making this up, are men. Okay. Yeah, so many false stats based on this, and it's just such an obvious logical fallacy to me, but I know some people maybe aren't like as well versed in this. Okay, so let's go back, or I think that's the end of that clip, if I'm not mistaken. Go to the next slide, or is that the end of it? I don't remember. I sent my moderator like sections of it, and I don't know if we played. I think we did. There's like 10 seconds left. Okay, let's play the 10 seconds, I guess. I don't know if there's anything pertinent in that. I don't remember.
What am I writing in for a Google search?
Are men smarter than women?
Okay.
Oh, okay. Okay. If you actually do that though,
Are men
But I can also
smarter
give
he
you
likes
personal
Google now.
experience
So
if you'd
let's
like.
pause it. I didn't actually do this, but I'm pretty sure that. All right. So the first thing that comes up is differences in so men have larger brains. So that for a long time was maybe if people were like, oh, does that mean they're smarter? But men and women have generally equal IQs. So there are this is probably the study he's referring to, that men are dumber and smarter than women, probably because of I haven't gone into any of this, but if you actually do a quick Google search, which actually if you can like play a little bit more of the clip, he actually says like, well, actually, never mind if you've already gotten rid of it. But the guy's like, well, I'm searching on Google and nothing is saying that. Everything's saying that it's equal, and he's like, well, being Tate. Okay, I think we've already, so what's the next one? Okay, so let's go to the next clip where we're going to see some of this.
I was at my grandmother's 93rd birthday. I looked there. My grandmother had 9 children because there was my father and 8 more. They all had a bunch of kids, blah, blah, blah. I stood there and I looked at my 93-year-old grandmother, and there was a whole room full with maybe 70 people that came from that one woman. Isn't that remarkable?
Yeah,
That nobody cared about her career. Nobody asked what job she did. Nobody asked how many times she went to the club.
So
Nobody asked if she had.
the context of this clip is that is that also was there another never mind. Okay. I think there is one more that maybe I missed that I was going to say before this. But anyway, the context for the clip is that he's saying these women are saying they don't want children. And he's saying, well, you know, that's wrong. And here's an example of a personal anecdote again. Well, my grandmother has had a bunch of children, and therefore, let's see what he thinks that proves. Yeah, if you can come back to it after this one. Sorry, my moderator. So there was another clip that I wanted to play before that actually had that fallacy, but we can go back to it. No matter. No worries. Let's go. Let's finish this clip and then we'll go back to the other one.
She had time to go to festivals? No. You had 70 sentient beings, including myself, full of life from one woman who dedicated herself to being a mother and a good wife. That is beautiful. And if you sit here and genuinely think that you're going to work your ass off through your fertile years and by the age of 54, you're not going to be suicidal alone with a cat, then you're dumb.
Let's go to the PowerPoint. So if we actually, I'm going to have you skip a few slides. So not this one, go to the next one. Yes. So this is the false dilemma. This is the either or. Andrew loves this one as well. Andrew loves a lot of these. So basically my grandmother, so one anecdote, okay, but my grandmother was really happy because she lived this kind of life. Therefore, if you don't live this kind of life, you will be depressed and suicidal. There's nothing in the middle, right? This is you could either be happy by doing this, but if you're not doing this, therefore you are unhappy, right? It's basically saying there's two options. Fallacy that presents only two options or sides when there are many options or sides. So it's not that you're either going to be extremely happy and fulfilled or you're going to be depressed and suicidal with your cats. Okay, we can keep playing.
And on earth have children and a man who's paying the bills and their mothers. The happiest people on earth. I guarantee it. Your mothers, ask your own mother, do you regret having me? She's going to say, of course not. You're the best thing that ever happened to me. So now you're going to sit here and you're going to end your own bloodline? All your ancestors were out there.
So this actually does kind of tie into the other fallacy, but if we go back to the slide. So again, well, one, he also did the circular reasoning again, or he just doesn't have any bait. Like he just goes, this is a fact, I guarantee it. So you guarantee it because you guarantee it. So circular reasoning. And then if we continue, this is actually funny because he does the appeal to authority, but he himself is the authority. So Andrew Tate is a very unique case because he has so many fallacies sometimes that they are more of a fallacy than the actual fallacies, because we're going to look at the appeal to authority fallacy in a second. But usually the appeal to authority fallacy is actually appealing to some other authority. Andrew Tate makes himself the authority and then uses circular reasoning. This is a fact because I can guarantee it. This is a fact because I said so. Because it's a fact. Okay, so let's go to the other clip. There was one other clip from that video that we had right before this one. And then that will have been 10. I'm sure we could do this all day, but those are 10. Okay.
Is not sexually exclusive. It's not the same as a woman is, because with a woman, you have the paternity issue. With a man, you don't have a paternity issue. If I have 3 girlfriends and they all get pregnant, we know who the mother and who the father is. If you have 1 woman and 3 men, you don't know who even the parents are if she got pregnant. So it's a whole big issue, right? Science can step in and kind of fix it.
Definitely,
but it's a good discussion.
DNA tests are pretty accessible nowadays.
Of course, yeah. That's exactly it. So I said science can step in and fix it, but that doesn't mean it's not.
Okay, so pause.
Look, read the Bible.
Okay, so read the Bible. Perfect timing. Go to our slides and go to the one right before this. So appeal to authority or tradition. So he's going to talk about tradition in a second. So actually, let's run the clip because I don't think it goes on for much longer, and then we can just talk about this, and then we can talk about
every
any
single man had
comments.
multiple wives. Not a single woman had multiple husbands. It's against the will of God. It's disgusting. In the eyes of God himself.
That would assume that if you're going in this multi-universe where everybody's reading the Bible, which is there's different religions all across the globe, reading different things, believe in different things. Interesting.
Yeah. So what my point is, if we talk about tradition, I'm not even talking about myself here. This is not about my personal life. We're talking traditional. Traditionally, every single man in history had multiple wives, and there was not a single woman who was celebrated for having multiple husbands. Female promiscuity has always been disgusting and frowned upon. In every single book ever written, ever, in all of history, in all cultures ever, women were supposed to be virgins. Women sleep with lots,
First of all,
lots and
okay,
lots of
let's
men
pause.
has never been.
So no, A, he's just saying that. And B, let's go back to this slide. Even if that was the case, appeal to authority / tradition. So when an appeal to authority, when an opinion of an authority on a topic is used as evidence to a point to support the claim. Okay, the authority here is the Bible. Read the Bible. The Bible says X, therefore X is true because this person said it. It's the same thing as when people say like, well, I don't believe this because my husband is a doctor and he said this. So because he's a doctor, he's the authority on this, and therefore that makes my claim true. That is a fallacy, as we can see, especially it's used a lot of times when it pertains to the Bible. And then second, when a belief is considered true or good because it is traditional, that is the appeal to tradition. Pretty easy to understand. Well, this is how things have always been done. It's just the way it is. Therefore, it must be true. Even though earlier in the same clip, he did say that DNA science can now fix this. So if science can now fix it, where exactly is the appeal to keep things traditional for the reason that you are now saying science can fix and is no longer then a problem? Okay. So I think that's everything. I think that's 10. I know this is meant to make a point against how Tate presents fact, which also, yep, I did make that disclaimer in the beginning. I am not saying Tate is the only one who makes these fallacies and nobody else, and people who disagree with him make these fallacies. I'm not even saying that what he's saying is wrong. I think a lot of the stuff he said here in the clips I showed you is wrong, but they're not wrong because of the fallacies I'm pointing out. The fallacies I'm pointing out are just saying that he has not proven those things, and he has made a lot of errors in his logic in his claims. That is all I'm saying. Those claims could very well be true. I could sit right here and say that in my experience, the sky is blue. Well, the sky is blue, but that's not because it's blue in my experience. It's blue for other sound reasons. So that distinction is something that I am not denying. In fact, when I watch some of the longer pieces of this clip, you see his opponents also using some logical fallacies as well. Now, I think they are using them less in a lot of these situations, especially the one with Hassan. Like Hassan was literally like, bro, evidence, anecdote. And Tate's like, well, I like my anecdotes. And it's like, okay, so therefore you're not looking for truth because truth is objective. It's not subjective. So let's look at some of these comments. Ideologies are useful only in the absence. So I don't know how far up to go because I know somebody may have said something. Andrew Tate is, yeah, Trump does a lot of that too. There's actually a YouTube video. I was just looking up logical fallacies just to refresh myself on YouTube while I was getting ready. And there is a video that's 15 or something fallacies from one of Trump's speeches in like 3 minutes. And he just literally every 20 seconds Trump talks, there's this logical fallacy. That does not mean that he's the only politician that does this. And it does not mean it's not effective, right? Clearly, Trump is a very successful person. Clearly, Andrew Tate is a very successful person because a lot of people do not know this stuff and they don't know how to reason. They don't understand logic, and this stuff is persuasive to them. Tate will never take you on his Bugatti. That is perfectly fine. That sounds like a revolting experience. Also, Tate has also said he's a trillionaire, which he's not. Unless he's the world's first trillionaire. I think Tate says a lot of things that he's like, him and Trump are very similar. Like, you know, they just lie as if we can't find out really quickly that it's a lie. Like, I'm a trillionaire. Like, but you're not, because like the richest people under you have like 200. So you have, I don't think he understands what trillionaire maybe means, which doesn't surprise me. But maybe you guys should join his Hustlers University and he can make you rich through his pyramid scheme. All right. Let us go through. So I know this mentioned, okay, we already looked at that one. Bro dude fallacy, smoking, wearing a designer watch and ripping your muscle shirt makes you more right automatically. Dr. Grande on YouTube did a good case analysis on the rise of the the TikTok alpha male, and he was really funny because he didn't mention some of these stuff. He's like, other attributes commonly associated with alpha males, and he just did it really funny, and he's like very like professional and like monotone. So Heather says, so all of feminism, not so any ideology. Yes. So feminism is also a very, because feminism can mean so many different things to so many different people. There's not one universal definition of feminism anymore. So some people may associate feminism with the extreme version of, some people may like, so when people say, do you identify as a feminist? I need to ask them, well, what do you mean by feminist? Because you and I could mean different things. You and me and this person could all mean very different things. So let's see. Ideologies are useful only in the absence of facts. So your ideology it depends what your ideology is and how you are providing evidence for it or how you're supporting your ideology. So you guys, also, this is the worst camera angle like in history. So thanks for still tuning in. So yeah, but basically any idea, any claim has, in my opinion, needs to be based in evidence and logic, and it needs to logically follow from its premise to its conclusion. So here are just some examples of logical fallacies people make to believe something is true when there is an error in that logic. All right, he's effective because his followers are, yeah, so you could definitely say that. If somebody is consistently, like we all make logical fallacies. Like I have definitely made them. You could probably point out 10 times I've made them, but I don't make them as like in his thing with Hassan, it was very like, that to me was just so clear because it wasn't just like a slip of like, oh, you know, whatever. Oh, I see how that's a logical fallacy. He's presented with, hey, this is why this kind of reasoning doesn't work. And he's like, well, and then, you know, and he's explaining the hasty generalization fallacy, explaining the anecdotal fallacy, and Tate just chooses to just not accept it because of his own personal experience. That to me shows his character, not the fact that he makes a ton of logical fallacies, although he does. All right, any other comments, questions, concerns? We might not go as long this time because on Friday I gave you guys 2.5 hours, but I would love to see a video of you in a courtroom. Love this. I don't go to court, nor would I think that I would be allowed to stream my court if I did go on Twitch. But thank you. I don't think they're, I don't know, sheeple means like sheep people. I don't know. So much as they have small lives and they want to feel like a part of something bigger, even if that thing is really stupid. So yeah, we've talked about this before. And he, as Dr. Grande says, he is appealing to men. This is all from, so it's literally a YouTube video you can watch. Dr. Grande does like, he talks a lot about different, like what actually is a narcissist, et cetera, et cetera. But he did like a thing about this. And he said that what Andrew Tate is promoting attaining all his goals through brute force. I'm a man, men are this, I'm strong, look, I'm shirtless, instead of critical thinking and hard work. So he's promoting a lazy way to success that appeals to men that feel like they aren't able to compete in the world as it is. So it's also almost like, okay, well, I like Andrew Tate is basically, I don't want to follow any rules. I don't want to know how to navigate social circumstances. I want to get everything as easy as possible without having to be polite, without having to reason, without having to think through brute force. And that obviously appeals to men and confirms kind of validates some of their darker desires to, oh yeah, okay, well, I can't compete in this world. And he's showing me an image of success where he's not following the rules. And if he like that's what's happening with his followers. I absolutely disagree with that statement. Okay, well, let's hear why. I don't know what to do if somebody just says they disagree. I need something you need to explain. The statement is false because the statement is false, and that's a fact. He didn't say that, but that would be circular. All right. So Friday, I'm going to be doing a Q&A. So if you guys have any questions for me, let me know, and I will do a short Q&A on Friday. Thoughts on Joe Rogan? Joe Rogan also, so there's that really long conversation I had with Shapiro, and there was like another video pointing out the logical fallacies that you know. So Rogan is somebody, but Rogan doesn't claim to be an intellectual. I think the appeal of Rogan is just that Rogan is that he's just like a normal dude that's curious, and you know, he talks to a lot of different people, but I think that he does, his logic and reasoning isn't always sound either. I think he doesn't make a lot of, he just seems like somebody, I think part of the success of his podcast is that he brings people on and he's open to all ideas. He's not really pushing forth an ideology, although sometimes he may be like saying he agrees with something or disagrees with something. And a lot of times when he does do that, he does not actually base it in any evidence. He is just convinced by certain people and not convinced by others. But sometimes the reasons he's convinced by certain people are full of fallacies, the arguments that person made. So I know for recently he's been very anti like how COVID was handled, which I'm not disagreeing with him on. So he's like, oh, so I support DeSantis because of this one issue on how he handled COVID. When if you look at some of Rogan's other beliefs, DeSantis doesn't really align with any of his values. But because of this one thing that I guess is the most important issue to Rogan, he's making statements like that. I don't know if he actually believes it. I don't know if he's just saying it on air and he hasn't thought it over and maybe he would change his mind. But I think he is a little bit irresponsible in that sense, that he'll just say something that actually goes against everything else he's ever said, like legalizing weed, abortion, all these other issues is like, but you know, so that is my thoughts on him, but I don't have an issue with him. He's not a Andrew Tate. Also, I haven't heard what he said on him, but I know they don't agree with him being deplatformed. I don't agree with him being deplatformed either. I don't agree with him being banned off social media at all. That doesn't mean I like him. On the contrary, Tate live wasn't easy at all. He had a very difficult life. I don't like him, don't hate him either, but I do respect him. You're able to respect him, but I didn't say his life was easy. So this is called a straw man. This fallacy. He's saying that I said that Tate's life is easy. I, first of all, never said that. And therefore I'm saying that the stuff he says, like, oh, you know, this or men, like men have authority over women solely because they are men. That's what he says a lot. Men are this way because of tradition. All of these logical fallacies he uses to say why men have authority over women. Therefore, being a man automatically makes you more important in this aspect than women. Did we cover the straw man? Or yeah, we covered the straw man. It's right here. So that's that. So when I say he's using brute force as a way to success instead of critical thinking, that's what I'm saying. He's saying that men, we're stronger than women and we're smarter than women because of my logical fallacy. That's a non sequitur. But therefore, we have authority over women because that's what the Bible says. That's how everything has been. So lack of critical thinking, right? Because critical thinking helps you spot logical fallacies. But because we're physically stronger and this and this and this, we are just naturally, right? And then some of the other terrible things I heard talking about being in the mafia, and if somebody does this, then he can get them killed, machetes, etc. Like he likes his brute force quite a bit. I know he's a kickboxer, but like, okay. Andrew Tate says, if you work hard, you more likely to succeed as a man because you're a man. So I don't know what are you trying to say that he advocates for hard work? I'm sure he advocates for hard work. I mean, as we see, Andrew Tate is full of contradictions. On one side, if you believe Google has a world agenda. The next second, he's screaming Google it at people and saying that Google therefore is saying something true. And now he likes this study. He doesn't like that study. So I'm sure there are times he said, I think he uses this for depression, right? He says depression isn't real. And you just need to work your way out of depression based on what evidence? I don't know. So I'm sure he's advocated for hard work. You can work hard to get yourself out of depression, according to Tate. But men are stronger than women. What's your argument? My argument is that men being physically stronger than women does not lead to the conclusions that he is pretending that they lead to. We had this discussion last time. Somebody's like, well, if you're hanging off a cliff, wouldn't you want a man there? But the thing is, in 2022, we are not, nobody's hanging off a cliff. If you're hanging off a cliff in 2022, I don't know where you're like, you should return to civilization. Brute force, unless you're going to be an MMA fighter, unless you're going to be a kickboxer, unless you're going to be an athlete, unless you're going to war, which even that, the amount of legitimate wars we have nowadays are not like you're not just stepping outside, engaging in mortal combat anymore. Critical thinking, collaboration, being able to work in a team, hard work. These are things that make you successful in 2022, right? Look at some of the most successful men we have in society. They're not physically the most strong men, but Andrew Tate, because it is clearly this is one of the things he says that is a fact, that men are physically stronger than women. He uses that to therefore therefore men have all these advantages because of brute strength, when brute strength doesn't actually give you much advantage in 2022. Even this whole men are here to protect and provide, just like with paternity, science has changed that. Well, society has changed. A lot of women can provide for themselves. Like for me, I don't know what, like, are you going to protect me from to go to the grocery store? Like, we're not stepping outside getting raped, like, just by stepping outside in 2022. You don't need a man necessarily to protect you. In fact, from what I have seen, I don't have exactly the studies and stuff in front of me, but like, it's just about numbers. So like, a man walking you to your car versus like 3 women walking to their cars, that is likely to stop somebody who wanted to, like, people look for people that are alone. Not saying men can't protect women, or not saying men shouldn't protect women, but I'm saying this idea that men, I provide and I protect for women, therefore I have authority over them, which is what he said. You don't need, like, women, we don't need protection and people to provide from us anywhere. This kind of ties into what we talked about a few weeks ago when it comes to the rise of lonely single men, that article where women are looking for emotional intelligence. We're looking for different things than what Andrew Tate thinks we're looking for. Now, this doesn't apply to all women. And there are women that love him and they love being the damsel in distress. And yeah, he can protect me and he can dominate me and he's big muscles. Plenty of women that do that, but that is not, I think that is becoming less and less the case with the majority of women, which is why that article and that research was something that caught a lot of people's attention a few weeks ago. So what makes a woman stronger or equally stronger than a man? Depends what you're talking about. You're talking about what makes a woman stronger. What do you mean by stronger? I'm not even necessarily, I'm just so you're kind of using the fallacy of, oh, I said that his claim isn't true, therefore the opposite must be true. That's either or. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying this isn't true. Physically, I'm not saying, I think men are physically stronger than women. I think we could use this by literally, if I looked up men physically stronger or women, I'm sure we have a lot of data on the fact that men weigh more than women. Men have better muscle something than women. I don't have the actual scientific explanation for why men are stronger than women, but that's kind of saying, like, there's stuff that we all just kind of know. There are facts to back it, but we don't all have the facts in front of us. Like, the sky is blue. I have no idea why the sky is blue, but the sky is blue. If there's evidence against that, then maybe I'd believe that over the fact that I just know a common fact. That is the common sense fallacy that I'm using right there. But I think if I were to actually pull up some data on the fact that men are physically stronger than women, I could. I just think that that is not very important in 2022 because I'm not hanging off a cliff for my life. Sounds like he wants to beat up a girl. I don't think he wants to beat up a girl. Testosterone. Yeah, there we go. Testosterone. I don't know. I have not spent my time looking up the exact reason why men are stronger than women. I believe men are stronger than women because I think there is plenty of data to back that. We don't have to, if you want to go around and be like, why is the earth round? Why is the earth flat? Why is there blah, blah, blah? That can be some stuff. Like, when it comes to climate change, I would much rather look at the research on that than whether men are physically stronger than women. If you want, we can do that right now. But stop. There was a transgender that competed and then killed it when he was dirt last when he competed against men. So what does this have to do with my argument? So is that evidence? Are you saying that is evidence for the fact that men are stronger than women? I think that can but that would just be one case. But I think that would be replicated if we did that with multiple people, but I don't have that in front of me. But I'm not denying that men are physically stronger than women. I'm just saying, who cares? Also, the fact that the right wing is obsessed with one person that's this, or like 8 kids that went and saw one transgender person. Like, transgender people are like under 1% of the population. I don't know why the right wing is obsessed with under 1% of the population. Like, it's like they wake up and sleep and think about something that affects under 1% of the population, which is crazy to me because there's so many other issues that affect more of us. Yes, of course, it's more than one case. Okay, so I'm not saying men aren't physically. I think you're confused. I never said men are not physically stronger than women. I would concede that point. But I don't see how that is relevant in. So are you saying it's relevant because the transgender, it's creating like, I don't know where you're taking that point. You have to tell me where you're taking that point, because I said, oh yeah, men are physically stronger than women, and you go, stop. There was a transgender person that competed in a swimming match, and that transgender person did better. Okay, well, where are you going with that? What are you trying to ask me what I think about it? Are you trying to ask me if I think that's right? Are you trying to ask me if I think this is going to cause just our world to collapse? What is the question, or what are you trying to argue for? But let's look up why men are physically stronger than women if we want to do that. I don't know. The volume of muscle fibers. Okay. So women also have on average less total muscle mass. Gender differences in strength and muscle fiber characteristics. Looks like men's bodies are built for more. Yeah, so nobody's saying there isn't physical differences between men and women. No one's even saying there aren't other differences between men and women. I'm just saying that what Andrew Tate uses to argue, or some of the conclusions that he makes, don't follow from the premise. Most of the times that I've heard. Now, that's just what I've heard. So maybe there's a slew of other arguments in Andrew Tate's online archive that don't make these type of fallacies. But when I see somebody that is denying the fallacies exist, that's, another level. Like when he's saying there's no such thing as an anecdotal fallacy. An anecdotal fallacy, your perception is actually truth. There's not much you can do with a person like that. If someone says, well, no, the research says that, or the world is round. Well, I think the world is flat. Like, my personal experience, everywhere I've gone, the ground has been flat. Therefore, the world is flat. And it's like, well, no, the science says that the world is round. Well, the science is from Google, and fuck Google, because I want to live on my personal experience. Well, if somebody's going to argue like that, there's not much you can do. I wish I was born in the 60s. I would have had love to experience the 80s and 90s. It seemed like better times. There's this idea that, oh my God, every generation is the worst. Things are going out of control, blah, blah, blah. But really study history, guys. Things like this is the easiest time we've lived in. Like, even when you look at something like voter suppression, like I remember when I took election law in law school, and we were hearing about people used to literally jump people that tried to go vote. Like, people were literally getting killed, trampled, beaten up for simple things. Now it's like, oh, well, maybe somebody didn't count all the ballots, so things are a lot actually easier now in a lot of ways. That doesn't mean every single aspect of everything is completely better now, because it's now. But if you look at overall human history and people that needed to, they had to be on a horse and travel for days to get across town. You're like, yeah. And social media, so internet, you could say, has some negatives, of course, but it has a lot of positives, right? We have the world at our fingertips. We're the age of information. I could look up studies. I don't have to go to the library and get out an encyclopedia or whatever to learn things anymore. So, yeah, I think, Yeah, Hazard Stent. I think that guy doesn't really have sources. Yes, I went to law school. Also, help me think of a name for the podcast now that Lana's gone. Some people yesterday on TikTok were saying like only law, legally thoughts, like play on being a lawyer and being OnlyFans girl. So if you guys think of something, let me know. Did you finish law school? Yes, I finished law school and I'm a licensed attorney. Social media is exposing problems that have existed forever. I think in some ways, like when we look at what was the documentary on Netflix? You guys know what I'm talking about. There was a documentary on Netflix about the effects of social media, especially on younger people. I think can be very negative if it's not controlled, but there's also plenty of positives for social media. What we're doing now, right? We're able to learn because of social media. Otherwise, you'd have to go to school, get on a whiteboard, go to the library. So there's positives and negatives to it, just like there is with anything. As human beings, we like to put things good, bad, category, because the lazy, primitive part of our brain likes to do that when things in life are actually far more nuanced. Hey, Legally Thoughts was me. Oh, hi. Yeah, you did think of that. I did tell you that if I use it, I will give you a full year to my OnlyFans, which I will. I just haven't decided if I'm going to use it yet. Ain't law very strict on culture? How are you an OnlyFans model and lawyer? Isn't law very... So yes, the legal profession is, I would say, generally fairly conservative, but that doesn't mean that the two are mutually exclusive. It's not against... So basically, you have to pass character and fitness to be an attorney, but the standard that they use for that is moral turpitude, and nobody, especially in 2022, is going to want to get on here and be like, she's not moral because she's doing this. I'm not doing anything illegal. I'm not doing anything dishonest. Those are things they look for: dishonesty, plagiarism, not lying to, not paying or not cooperating with the law. These are things that they really like. Plagiarism, all that, especially if it was recent, that'll get you in far more trouble than, other things. And they, especially if something is legal and you're not doing anything, they wouldn't put their own moral, although they might want to. The ABA as an association would be hard pressed to come and say, oh, you guys can't be lawyers. We're going to take your license away because you're doing stuff online that we think is immoral. They're a little bit smarter than some of you guys. They're not going to make that leap. So are you practicing law or just licensed? I am practicing law, but I am not doing it as much because most of my income right now is from social media, which is far more income, and I like it. So I am still practicing, but probably like, I would say it's an 85-15 split. Hello, all. I was looking through Twitch and landed here. I'm a lawyer too, but from another jurisdiction. Insider trading, data privacy are terrible to defend from a legal standpoint. Yes. I think the guy is asking, how can I be an OnlyFans star and a lawyer at the same time? And I'm just trying to explain to him that is not against. I even had someone on my TikTok, because I made a TikTok about it. Someone's like, I think that's against the law. There's no federal law. There are no state laws that say you can't do that. There's no model. There's no ethical rule. I don't know, maybe some other states, possibly. I don't know what the fuck goes on in Arkansas. But there's not even a fucking model rule, ABA rule, anything that says that, you can't be sexually promiscuous. If you would, I'm not even, I guess, in real life, but you can't be online posting yourself in a sexual manner and still be an attorney. That could be your personal opinion. There are many firms that probably would not hire me because of this, because what I'm doing does not align with their firm's values, but that doesn't mean that I wouldn't be able to be an attorney. It would be hard to find work at top law firms though, right? I think it would, but the thing is, why the fuck would I want to work at a top law firm where I'll be working like 80 hours per week being abused, basically? And this is not the case for everyone, but I talked about this in previous episodes. Lawyers are high rates of depression, suicide. It's not a great environment. To be making a fraction of the money that I'm making from home as my own boss, being able to live my life in the way I want. So you would have to pay me. I'm already making way more than I would be making at a top law firm, but you would have to pay me like millions of dollars at this point if you wanted me to work at your law firm. Would be really difficult to find jobs at top law firms. It's too much. Yeah, and that's another thing. If I wanted to work at the top law firms, I would have had to have, I mean, I went to a pretty decent law school, but I was not like, they only take like depending on which school, like if you go to Yale or Harvard or those places, like most of their students are able to get those. But if you go to like just like a top 20 school like I did, then you need to like score and like that. People that want to work at big law firms, that's their track that they plan for throughout law school. That was never my track. It sounded like a torture chamber for me, so I didn't want to do that. Were you studying law before OF? Like, what made you decide to become a lawyer? My mom was a lawyer, and school came very easy to me. I didn't even want to go to like, I literally wanted to go to like I wanted to be a lawyer because like my parents were kind of like, okay, like, and that's the thing. That's one part of the reason I tell you guys, don't do things just because it's like the traditional path or what your parents want, etc. And I was just planning to go to some whatever. I scored very well on the LSAT, got a bunch of offers, got a full ride to the school that I did go to. And I was like, okay. And school is it comes easy to me because I'm good at taking tests. And in law school, your grades are essentially usually solely based on your final exams. And then the bar exam is just one really long standardized test. I'm really good at it. So I was able to go through law school without a lot of trouble. But I knew the whole time that I didn't want to be stuck in an office billing my life in 6-minute increments for years and years and years to come. So I was like, we gotta come up with another plan. Otherwise, I'm gonna be miserable. It's the Benjamin Franklin quote. Some people die at 25 and don't get buried till 75. That was about to be me. And then I was like, well, I can sell pictures. And now I do, and now I'm happy, and now I'm able to share this information with way more people than I would have been able to. Can tell you now I've affected more people from this podcast than I did as a lawyer, helping corporations and rich people that could afford to pay us $500 an hour or whatever. That's not what I wanted to do with my life. It wasn't fulfilling. It was also very draining. And I'm one of those people, I don't like a 9-to-5. That doesn't mean that's the case for everybody. What I do now involves a lot of hustle. It's hustle culture. Hustle culture is more suited to me. It may not be more suited for everybody, which is good because we don't want all of us to like the same thing. If all of us were afraid of blood, like I am, nobody would be doctors and we'd be screwed. So we don't want everyone to be the same. Did you ever consider public work? I did consider public work, but the money in it was just not enough. I wanted more money, but if I wanted more money, then I would have to go into the private sector, and I didn't like the work conditions of the private sector. So now I make more money than the private sector does without those work conditions because I stopped caring what people think about me, and I decided to follow and trust myself. And who knows? Now, like, there's literally nothing I can't do except for things like being in maybe particular law offices, which I don't want to do anyway. When I was making this decision and people were like, well, what are you going to do in 10 years? OnlyFans is not a long-term career. What are you going to do in 10 years? I'm like, well, I do know that if I just stay here, I'll be in an office in 10 years for sure. So if I'm going to be in an office in 10 years and I don't want that, I might as well take a risk and see what else I can do because I refuse to be stuck in an office for the next whatever years. So what do you find more attractive? Constitutional law or general? I like constitutional law, but there's not a lot of like some of my externships and stuff, I worked at the appeals bureau where like we were dealing with constitutional issues like Fourth Amendment, whatever, drafting motions on that. But like, there's not a lot of actual practice where you are dealing with the Constitution a lot of the time. And I also didn't want something super stressful. I wanted to do something where I could go home at 5 p.m., at least try to go home by 5 p.m. So that's actually what I did end up doing till April. And then in April, I was like, no, I was actually losing money. Imagine going to work every day and making less money because you're going to work every day. And it isn't conducive to your long-term goals. So I was like, this is dumb. Like if you look at my even OF earnings, like I was like up. And then when I started the job, it was like, ooh. And then as soon as I quit, the month I quit, I've been making more and more each month. So I would have lost out on hundreds and thousands of dollars if I had chosen to stay even in a year. So crazy. I'm actually struggling with a limitation of live close right now. Well, I'm sure you got it. You just gotta, use your brain. And I don't miss that. One of my coworkers, I swear to say coworkers, one of my colleagues from the firm I was at texted me the other day. They're like, oh, I wish you were here. I'm drafting whatever, and I would love to use another brain. And I was literally on my way to get a booty facial. And I'm like, I love this. I love that I'm not sitting in that office trying to figure out how to draft this thing with my colleague. I love him. Instead, I get to go in the middle of a Wednesday and go get a facial done on my butt. How amazing is that? How much have you made? I will not answer exact. I think it's tacky. And, but like I said, I make, the reason I talk about making more money is I want to express to people that not to listen to people saying that you can't be successful at something. People were like, well, the average person on OnlyFans only makes X amount of dollars, and it's like only one in like a million that can make the, okay, well then I'm not one in a million. Like I'm not making amaranth numbers. I want to one day. But I said this on TikTok. I may have said this in my last one too, but I love this like quote about people, like, people that have going past the cemetery, and there are so many $1 million ideas that are buried in that cemetery because people didn't take risks. People didn't believe in themselves. People listened to people who were putting their limitations and their insecurities onto others and preventing them from following their dreams and living a life that makes them happy. That's kind of one of the reasons I really get mad what TikTok does to people, not necessarily to me. If TikTok, I didn't even start really using TikTok till a couple months ago, and I was doing great. I'm able to support myself, but there's so many dreamers on TikTok. There's so many innovators on TikTok. There's so many entrepreneurs on TikTok that are trying to do something different, trying to be different, trying to follow their dreams and show people their art and their talent. And so it really upsets me that TikTok behaves like that and doesn't want people that they consider ugly to be on the For You page or whatever. But for me, I'm such a big proponent of, I'm not saying everybody go quit your job. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is, if you don't like your job, I think we're talking about Rogan. Rogan did a really good video on this. It's like a really popular YouTube video on why you should quit your job. And you need to have a plan. If you don't like what you're doing, have a plan. Find something you want to do and work on that. Continuously water that. Have it grow, and it can flourish into something that you enjoy doing. Now, no, it doesn't mean that I enjoy every aspect of my job now. No, but this job is far more conducive to my happiness than being stuck in a law firm where everyone tells me that that's the path I'm supposed to be on, and that's where I'm respected. I'm not respected doing this. It's all based on other people's perceptions of me. And I can tell you, I sleep better. I'm happier. Almost everything in my life is better, despite what other people think is probably worse of me now. Some people, not all people. Living the life. Do what makes you happy. Do you plan to have kids? I don't want kids till I'm like 35. Which I think is another thing we can talk about on a podcast episode. So having kids, like I know in Canada, I have a lot of family in Canada. It's like very common. Like my cousin had her first child at like 29, 28, and she was like the youngest person. And people are like, oh, you had kids before you're 30. Like it's common in America. It's actually not. A lot of people in other places are having kids in their 30s. It makes more sense when it comes to the way society's set up, especially if you're going to go get like a degree, past a college degree, and then start a career. Like this is a problem a lot of lawyers go into. So I also want to do an episode or talk more about how it's great that women are able to now enter these roles that were traditionally only available to men, but it kind of can clash with some other goals that women may have, such as potentially having children. These environments are highly conducive to male flourishment, not necessarily women. So, but what I do, I think, is great if I ever wanted to do that. Now, I think the caveat there is like if I got pregnant now, it would significantly impact my money-making ability. But I'm also giving myself an opportunity that if I'm smart and I do things right, I can be able to stay home with my kid and not work by the time I'm that age ever, you know, or I can do something else, right? You can do anything you want to do. Don't let people tell you that this is the way to be successful. Go to college, get a degree X, go to college, get a degree to do X. That can work sometimes, but that's not the only path to success. Since you're a Highlander, how do you feel about your finances and relationships? Can you only be with men who make equal or more? No. First of all, I don't care. Like people on like I said this on TikTok yesterday. It is so annoying to me how so many people are like, oh, are you single? Are you single? Relationships? I'm like, there's like there's an infinite amount of more interesting questions to ask me. Like, ask me, aren't you curious about something like more interesting than that? But people are just obsessed. Like, relationships should be one part of your pie, right? You should have self, career, personal growth, community, family, friends, hobbies, and then relationship should be one part of that. People make relationship like the whole thing. And so like, I don't even think about men most of my day until people online are like, what kind of men do you like? Would you date this? Would you do that? How tall can you be? Would you date a Latino? Like, it's just insane to me. But my opinion on this would be that I don't expect a man to support me in any type of way. In fact, I would not like that. But he needs to be able to support himself enough that we are going to be compatible in our lifestyles. So to me, that means that like, if I want to go to Greece next week, you need to be able to afford to take yourself to Greece. You don't have to take me. You have to be able to afford to take yourself and pay your own way to do that. So you don't need to make as much as me, because I also spend a lot of money on stupid things like purses and shoes and clothes. You could dress like a bum for all I care, but I want us to be able to enjoy and experience life together. And if I have to pay for you in order to do that, then I don't think that would be, I think that would cause some issues. You just need to be able to have enough money that you're able to, and I'm not like flying off to like 5-star resorts in every other weekend. I work too, but I think that would be my take on it. So if like you're making like minimum wage, I think that's fine. I totally respect you, but I think it would be hard for me to have a long-term relationship with you just because we would have such different lifestyles, and I would need to, in order to live the life I want, I would need to pay for you to also live the life that I want with me. But then again, like, I don't even believe really in long-term marriages. So personally, I don't think we could do a whole episode on that, on marriage. And I would get married probably because of the benefits that come along with it. But the idea of like, we are together till the death do us part and blah, blah, blah. It just clearly, statistically speaking, everybody gets on this altar and they all think that they are not going to be in the majority of people where it fit. Like, everybody thinks they're special and like, oh no, I'm not good. That doesn't mean that you can't have really beautiful I think if you have good communication, right? Like, I'm for open marriages if people have good communication and that's what they want to do. But there are some people that doesn't work for, right? There are some marriages that people subscribe to my OnlyFans and they're like, my wife told me about you, it's great. Or I have people that maybe work with OnlyFans girls that are married and their wives are cool with it. Like, to me, that is more healthy than a lot of times marriages where it's like, we are stuck together and you can't have any type of other attraction or work with any, like, so I think, but people are different. That may work for some people. Bro, I'm Mexican. My aunts and uncles started having kids at like 17. Yeah, I have some aunts in the Middle East that started having kids when they were like even younger, which glad that's not. It has a lot to do with men thinking women are only primarily, yeah, I think so. So do you not care about your kids being bullied and ridiculed because of your OnlyFans? So let's see. I'm 27 now. I want kids at 35. If in 8 years, and it's not even going to be because of 8 years, my kid's going to be a baby. So let's say by the time they're going to be able to process somebody is bullying them and they're in school, this is going to be over probably 15 years down the line. If I'm still popping on the internet in 15 years, my kid will be very well off. And I think we can combat some of that. Also, by that point, the internet will be so full and so cluttered with, we have no idea. Look at it. OnlyFans wasn't even a thing a few years ago. Now people are like, oh, every girl has an OnlyFans. Who knows what's going to happen 15 years from now? For me to not do anything now, because potentially in over 15 years from now, potentially might, like, it just doesn't even make logical sense at all. So not sure what you're really, not sure where your brain is, like, you know, coming up with that as a good argument. If you're married, are you prenup or no prenup? I would probably get a prenup. She said she just said she wants to get married because of the benefits. You know what that means? Yeah, it means that our ridiculous laws in our nation, they 100% they benefit people who are married versus people who are simply cohabitating. So whether that is, I need to be able to visit, I can't visit or I can't make decisions if my boyfriend gets in an accident somewhere, I can't make decisions for him as his girlfriend, I can make decisions for him as his wife. Plenty of laws that benefit married couples over non-married couples. This is also the case with tax breaks. A bunch of tax breaks are given to people that are married versus people that are single. Basically, so many laws in so many different areas value and incentivize marriage over not being married. That is what I mean by that. So when you say you know what that means, that is what I mean. What you are assuming I don't even know is probably incorrect. What's the point of getting married if you just want to have an open relationship and just be single and fun? I just said that is one of the benefits. Also, I'm not against long-term monogamy. I'm against making bold claims before the Lord that you will be together till death do you part. And then I always wonder, like, are you just not married in heaven then? Like, you're supposed to go to this blissful, wonderful place, but then, like, you're not, I don't know. But yeah, that is the point. I think relationships just look healthy when there's boundaries and people communicate and people are honest and they have high integrity. I think your relationship can look any way you want as long as two people aren't consenting and they're not hurting other people. Makes sense. I think there's a good argument that familial units are also beneficial to children. I think there's good data that supports that, but that doesn't mean that, like, you know, you need to be in it with this idea that, like, okay, like, you know, we're together until death do us part, because that is what, because why? I think human beings, we've seen time and time again, are unable to predict the future and are unable to make long-term promises. I think that is irresponsible. That you could say, I can try, I vow to try to work out my problems with you. I vow to try to make this work as long as so long as it is good for the both of us. But to say no matter what, even if we're miserable, even if you grow and you turn, like, you grow this way, I grow this way, you may be better suited with somebody else, I may be better suited with somebody else, we're still going to just be miserable together forever, or one of us will be. Clearly, first of all, does not work, which is why we have so many instances of unhappy marriages as well as divorces, but also it's almost, to me, I don't know if this is just me, to me, I mean, people accuse me online of being arrogant all the time. And I think, like, I would never get up on an altar and think that I would not be in the majority of people to do something. Like, the majority of people clearly do not keep this promise, but I'm special. Like, I think that is almost arrogant. Same thing with religion, right? People think their religion is true over all the other religions. Like, to me, that takes a level of arrogance. Or this, even now with manifestation, if you're not manifesting, you're not doing it right. To me, that's just so arrogant and privileged. Like, look at the world. Look at how many people are suffering. Are people in Yemen just not manifesting correctly and they're getting bombed? Like, what is this? I don't know. People are very narrow-minded, I think, and self-absorbed. Okay, what's the point of, okay, you know exactly what I mean. Genuinely, I don't. So if you would like to share, then that would be helpful. I don't know what the benefit is. Money, because I make plenty of money. I just said I don't want actually anybody to support me. Sex, I don't think I need to be married to do. I genuinely don't know what the benefit is. Looks don't last forever. Are you really thinking of doing OnlyFans for 15 more years? I think you're confused. The guy said that, are you worried about your children being bullied? about you doing OnlyFans. So I literally made the point that in 15 years, I'm probably not going to be on OnlyFans. And if I'm still on OnlyFans 15 years from now, when my children are born and then they're old enough to be in school, and then somebody must have seen, of all the people that have probably, moms have at that point probably been on something, have nudes somewhere on the internet. People are like, your mom 15 years ago was on OnlyFans, ha ha ha. That would be highly unlikely. Or if I was still on OnlyFans, again, if I'm still able to make the money I'm making now or more for the next 15 years, I wouldn't even need to. I would quit before that and I'd be good. But that would be amazing. And me and my children would discuss things, and I would be able to work through that with them and be like, but you know what? Their values don't align with our values, and we have a great level of financial security and happiness, or your mom does, which means you do. So would you sign a prenup? Yeah, I would sign a prenup. You always have cute outfits on. What are you wearing today? Oh, I actually do usually have cute outfits on, but I don't online. This is just a top from Skims, and then I have sweatpants on. He's saying you take half of the man's money. I think I'd be more worried about the man taking half of my money. It depends on the man. I'm not a multi-millionaire. Yeah, like not multi, like I'm not fucking Jeff Bezos, right? So like if yeah, in that situation, signing a prenup and would probably not be beneficial to me financially in the case of a divorce, but I am fully capable of supporting myself financially. I would have no issue not taking money from a man to do so. So if you want to just not believe me, then you're able to do that. It's crazy that divorce numbers have gone down because fewer people are getting married. Yeah, I think that would be a good, like, some people are realizing maybe what I'm saying, and they're like, and people are like cohabitating, like, instead of getting married. People are not getting married as easily. I think belief in religion has gone down, so therefore belief in marriage has gone down, because marriage is like an institution that is heavily embedded in religion. So that could be a reason. When people make the argument that, well, divorce rates have gone up because people are blah, 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 and they're like, look at these countries, or back in the day, I think also a lot of people are now leaving unhealthy relationships, whereas in the past, like I can say from experience, in the Middle East, there's less divorce, but that doesn't mean there are like people that are married are happy. I can say probably a lot of the people that get married aren't happy. For instance, in Iran, if you get divorced, the husband takes the kids. A lot of women stay in marriages because they don't want to lose their kids. That doesn't mean that their marriage is happy. I would argue you are being arrogant to think your kids would not go through a hard time because of you being on OnlyFans. I'm not saying my kids wouldn't go through a hard time. I'm saying it's highly unlikely that in 15 years, what I do now online with wherever the internet goes in 15 years, I mean, look at the last 15 years. I think that is such a leap and such a concern that is not likely to occur that far down the line, right? That's what I'm saying. And if they do have a hard time, then I will work through it with them. But I'm not going to not make my decisions now, because potentially in 15 years, although highly unlikely, that my children would be faced with this dilemma. Who do you want your kids to be with? I don't know what that means. I don't have kids. Family units are much more multifaceted. Well, like co-parenting, two sets of parents. Yeah, I think especially now that a lot of people are having kids out of wedlock, or they're having kids they still have kids after they get divorced. People are learning better ways of co-parenting. There's just more information and learning to be done in that arena. That is also kind of pushing back against the family unit being the only good, only good environment for child development. I think we can look at what is conducive to healthy child development, and then we can look at ways to implement that without being in a marriage, or and I think we all know that even though the family unit is good for children, it's still worse if the actual marriage is unhealthy. So if you're fighting and you're just having a lot of unhealthy, if you're showing your children an unhealthy marriage, it's actually worse, even though you're still married, for your children. I think that's what the data has shown as well. So if you're in an unhealthy marriage, it's actually better for you to divorce and co-parent in a lot of situations than to stay. When you have kids, what kind of man do you want to be the father? Not RC storage drive and not renegade. Somebody emotionally intelligent, aligns with my values, high integrity, high courage, very active, wants to be a father, takes the role as a father seriously, but doesn't also what his perception of being a good father has to align with mine. If his perception of a good father is to raise our sons to be X way and raise our daughters to be X way and have this very distorted, narrow view of like masculinity and femininity that Andrew Tate has, that is not the kind of man I want to be a father to my children. I was very lucky. I had an amazing father. My father was so hands-on, so active. Actually, the gender roles in my family were my mom, they both worked, but my mom was working more. So my dad did most of the cooking, cleaning. He took us to all our piano lessons, gymnastics, all these things. Like my dad was far more involved in all of that than my mother was. And I think that's great. Well, it's a little too late now to stop posting because your pictures are online forever. I think millions of women's nudes are online. I don't think it's, especially as time goes on. In fact, me and one of my colleagues that's also an attorney, she was like, yeah, in like even a few years, I mean, it's just the whole internet has all our data. It has all of our people, like all of our nudes. The internet has all this shit anyway. Like, you know, it's really not a huge deal if, you know, in 8 years, if somebody searches my username, they can still pull up a picture of me. They can probably do that for a multitude of other women. And if I'm so successful at it that I'm still a hot topic, I'm not even that successful at it now that everybody knows who like, you know, I don't know how many, like I think on Reddit, I have like, which is my biggest platform at the moment, I have like, I'm getting close to 600,000 followers. Like I'm not fucking Kim Kardashian or Mia Khalifa. What's your type physically? My physical type is not as, these are also great questions for my Q&A next week. So ask me them on Instagram or OnlyFans or Snapchat or the email, the podcast email. But I'm trying to think what my type physically is. I have so many different types. Like I have different prototypes. Like sometimes like I'm really attracted to like the tortured musician with long hair that's like playing the guitar in like Italy. Like that may be a vibe. Sometimes I like somebody that looks like, you know, an athlete, an NBA player. Like it's just, I have different types. To me, it's just so arbitrary and it's just dumb because when I become face to face with those people, their personality, their demeanor, and their character, I have never seen a person and been like, I want to fuck them because of how they look, or I want to be with them because of how they look. I think that is just, and I have men all the time that send me marriage proposals on, and I'm just like, or they like want to know me because of how I look. And I know men are more visual creatures, but physical attraction is not an indicator of long-term success in a relationship at all. So when are you going to be on The Bachelorette? Never in a million fucking years, because I don't. If you watch The Bachelorette, that's good for you. I'm just not my type of thing. I think it's so scripted and dumb. Short kings, yes. This height thing is very weird. Like my dad is very short. My first boyfriend was not very tall, and they didn't even like notice. Like it's definitely it's a trait of like men who feel like something is wrong and they're not being successful in the dating arena, that then be like, oh, maybe it's because I'm short, maybe it's because I'm this. If you are successful and you're also short, you're not thinking that, oh, I'm short, therefore, like, you know, so it's not like my dad literally, he jokes that he didn't even know he was short till me and my sister told him. He's like, I dead ass went like 40, because my dad didn't have me till he's like 40. He's like, I did not know I was short for 40, like over 40 years until you told me I was short. It's like, he's like, I realized like, yeah, I mean, like when I looked at other people, they were taller, but I never saw that as something that was a deficiency until you guys told me that in America, people really value height on men. You never wanted to have sex with somebody because of how they look? LOL. Yep. I understand it's not everything, but it's the first thing you notice. Yeah, it's the first thing you notice, but that noticing something that you find appealing doesn't lead to me wanting to be intimate with you. I understand that may be how you think because you are a very different human being than I am, and men are also far more likely. I mean, they've done these studies where like an average looking woman will go to a bunch of men on a college campus and be like, would you want to have sex with me? And a lot of men will say yes. But then if an average looking man comes, or I would say even an attractive man, if an attractive man walks up to 50 women, it's like, you want to go fuck? I would probably assume they've done the study with an average looking man and all the women said no. Literally every single one said no. If you did a very attractive man, there probably would be a higher population that would say yes, but it wouldn't be all of them. So yeah, again, I understand it's the first, just because you notice something attractive does not therefore lead to I want your dick in me. That's not how I would say a lot of people operate, but that's great that that's the way you operate. You are free to do so. Are you an attorney? Yes. Okay, any other questions? I'm going to have a Q&A on Friday, so I like some of these questions. You guys can send me more. I'm going to post a thing on Reddit, Instagram, Snap, and OnlyFans and see what kind of questions I get, and I will answer them for you Friday. Alrighty, guys. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. As always, follow me on Instagram. I'm still on the backup. Still have hope I'm going to get my main account back. But for now, that's the Instagram I engage with. So, thank you, and goodbye.